All right, everybody, it's another longer compilation episode of A Modernist Guide for Popular Media, this time pop records of 2021. This is about all the pop albums that I think are kind of worth discussing that have come out this year so far. I think it's been a pretty good year of trying to revive genres or subgenres of pop that were really popular in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they're making a huge wave, which is pretty nostalgic for me because that's when I was a wee little child or whatever. But yeah, so I'm just gonna run right into it. It's 12 records, 13 maybe. I keep forgetting. But I've noticed it seems like I'm almost kind of dead in some videos, and that's not the case. I'm not sure. I'm trying to get better at, I guess, speaking and retaining knowledge when I say words super fast. But let's see how fast we can go with this. Up first, we're just going to get the big one out of the way, and that's Olivia Rodrigo, Sour. She's kind of just new on the scene. I think she's like Disney kid. And with me heavily approaching 30, I have foregone watching all that Disney stuff, so I don't know who these children are anymore. I think maybe Selena Gomez was like the last one I remember. But I want to give a lot of props to Olivia for bringing guitar back to super million listens, billion views on YouTube pop, because I miss that a lot, that early thousands rocker girl stuff like Vanessa Carlton and Avril Lavigne, Michelle Branch, and a couple others. Even like early Hilary Duff was like that. There's a lot you can pull from that, what she's like emulating without really sounding like a copycat. She has like the perfect chameleon voice of sounding like any super popular semi alt pop girl from the last 20 years. Some Paramore, there's some Lana Del Rey, some Taylor Swift. Again, I named Avril and others, and that's just what she's doing. She's emulating successfully, very successfully. Like, while they all kind of sound that even, like there's a point where she kind of reminds me of Fiona Apple. She has created her own voice for it. This wave of people just caring so much out of nowhere, like it is, regardless of like her pedigree, kind of has a Lannis Morissette feeling of just like suddenly this record's a big fucking deal, regardless of what you actually think of it. And for the most part, I'm into it. The only songs that I would say listen to are the rock songs, just because you take one song like Driver's License or Traitor and you've heard her deep, brutally depressing stuff, and it's just soul crushing, but it's still kind of a little too immature. It's not just woe is me, it's how fucking dare you, look how hurt I am. And it's a little too, victim's not the right word, but just listen to Traitor. It's just like, ow, so much ow. I don't want this much ow. This is the wrong kind of ow. But I love Brutal, and I love Good For You, and Jealousy, Jealousy. Those are three easy, just instant classics for me for that kind of girl pop punk style kind of stuff, and just awkward, intense, brutal humanism. But, she's got a long way to go. Some songs are samey. The lyrics are a little half-baked and just like sappy and saturated, and feel a little manipulated into crying from Hope You're Okay, the closer. But at the same time, she is super empathetic and it shows. However, it still rings a little hollow just how repetitive thematically it is. So it's a 5.7 out of 10, but that's only because I'm hoping she sticks to the musicianship more and gets more creative on that level. And literally right on the other side of her, kind of her thematic, moody twin musically, is Billie Eilish, who I think a lot of people looked over this year because she's not the new face like Olivia is. It sucks how every single year we have to have a new pop darling, but Billie is kind of already last year's news or 2 years ago or whatever. Even though this record, I think, Happier Than Ever, is more mature, and lyrically it's a lot better. Tonally, she's a lot better. Vocally, she's a lot better. She's improved immensely. NDA is, I think, the best song she's written, both from her brother's production standard to lyrically. I will say it's a little bloated, and the back half is way better than the front half, starting with Overheated, which actually feels like a delirious, drunken, violent gorilla song, which most of our stuff does feel like deep, dark, violent gorillas. I think this is a much more comprehensive record for her, It's just a bit much. It's still kind of repetitive. Say all this with her first record only being like maybe 2, 3 songs that I even bothered with. And now here it's like 5, maybe 6. Like I said, NDA, Overheated. Therefore I Am, Happier Than Ever. And I don't mind Goldwing and Getting Older. But at the same time, I don't know. I still think she can do better. When she pulls shit out like Therefore I Am and NDA and Overheated, I expect the rest of that record to be just as good. So it's a 5.5 out of 10. Next we have everybody's favorite baby boy, Lil Nas X, Montero, and I just love him. I think he's wonderful and silly, and he's proven a point without going like too preachy. I think he understands the world he lives in, the Zoomer culture, the Gen Z TikTok abrasive shit. He's part of it. He has not left it, even though he's like a millionaire now, I guess. Panini was my favorite song off of his EP. Old Town Road was pretty good, but I love that he kind of kept this punk sound that he had in a couple songs off of that on here. I don't think people have really thought about it, but Montero is a song that I'm pretty sure Brendan Urie of Panic at the Disco is super fucking mad he didn't write it. Or maybe, 2006 era I Write Sins Not Tragedies, Brendan Urie. But still, like, Montero is such a mid-2000s pop punk banger without necessarily the guitar parts, but it's wonderful. I'm going to say a lot of controversial things here with the Lil Nas record. First off, Elton John should have sang. That's some bullshit. That's a whole point deducted. But smooth and silky, and I like his singing, though. He did a cover of Jolene after the record was released. I'm like, man, dude, you would have made some waves if you'd have had that on here, too. That would have been great. And I like his singing voice. His rapping's not bad, and I hate saying that because I think he wants to be both, and he should be recognized as both for sure. That's What I Want just has a beautiful melody. It's a great song. Lost in the Citadel, Sun Goes Down, Void. You can't go wrong with any of these. But the last one, I'm going to say this, and this is fucking true. Life After Salem is a doom metal song. Metal. Like almost metal. It's got that guitar. It's got the spirit of it. It's not exactly that, but like there's this band called Zeal and Ardor, and it kind of reminds me of that too. And like black people are trying to be more creative with heavy music, and they're slowly sneaking into the metal scene, and I really like it because they're not afraid to change things up, and they don't know what metal convention is because they weren't allowed to be part of it before, so they get to do whatever the hell they want. And Life After Salem is a doom metal song. It's not super heavy, and maybe you can say it's not metal if that matters, but it's got the spirit. It's wonderful. It's really good. It's haunting. It's dark. It's echoey. And that is what bass doom metal is, even if it's not, overbearing and murky. This is a 7.5 for me. He can only get better. He's trying to just constantly play with sounds, and he's succeeding, and just gonna keep continuing. Up next, we have Screen Violence by CHRVCHES. CHRVCHES is kind of one of my favorite gothic new wave revival synth pop band. They're really just modern Eurythmics, but I think catchier, and this record is, I think, maybe their best. Lead singer Lauren Mayberry really just lets loose on the lyricism. It is scathing, it is condescending, it is dismissive of the way people judge her. She is a full on leave me alone kind of bitch mode, and it's completely deserved, like every single song. It is so condescending in the most wonderful way. She's just tired of being told what to do. And as moody and dark as every song is, it's still bright and shimmering. Its highs and lows blend just so good together. It's just perfect goth pop. Robert Smith from The Cure is on here, for God's sakes. So that should be enough stamp of approval for some people, I think. The first 6 songs are all just kind of home runs for me. Asking for a Friend all the way to Final Girl. But that doesn't mean the back half is bad. I don't think there's a bad song on here at all. Saying it's only 10 songs, this is just straight 8.5. The reason why it's not more than that is just because there is still something missing. It's because it's what I expected from CHRVCHES, I guess. And I just want them to just make me addicted and wow me. And this was just more like, yes, perfect. So this is perfect for them. They don't really break a lot of mold or conventions. They're back to their own ferociousness after a lot of people felt like they just were losing it. And this is a comeback album, I guess, then. But I think it's pretty top notch. Next, I have another like just top contender for pop album of the year, basically, which is Texas by Sleigh Bells. Sleigh Bells is what a lot of people will call industrial or noise pop, and really what Sleigh Bells here specifically is you take like Blondie or Stevie Nicks, maybe just some kind of like 70s, early 80s before new wave, female fronted pop rock, and now you add like mid 90s grunge filter, and then a lot of modern electronica, a la, you know, any kind of like Daft Punk ish kind of stuff, and some other things that are just, you know, all over that you can probably hear from. And that is what this is. It is both neon and dirt. And Sleigh Bells have been around for about 10 years, and this is just what they do. It is a cheerleader who can play guitar kind of shit. I'm Not Down and Locust Lace are just visceral. Lyrically, they are kind of almost horror-esque, and that's something else they do very well, where it's poppy and fun and dancey, but lyrically, it's just kind of fucked up, and it's great. Justinko Genesis is another great one, and also Tennessee Tips and Truth Seekers. There's not really a bad song on here either, though they do kind of waver about 2/3 in, and that's fine. I'm not super keen on the final song, Hummingbird Bomb, much, but the songs I love, I really love, and this is just the kind of music that I love the most, where it has the sunshine, happy B-52s kind of pop stuff, but it just slams at you, and it also wants to like be as loud as possible for it to work within the pop genre still. It's not, you know, super back and forth. It's blended perfectly, and it's as aggressive as it needs to be, while still being so easy to sing and dance to. So I'm gonna call it an 8.25, maybe an 8.5. I'm gonna say 8.5, but it's up there, especially for the pop records this year. Something that's really blowing up in the internet right now is Magdalena Bay with Mercurial World. And for me, for the most part, this is just like Swedish pop at its finest, even though I think this is just a duo from Florida. This is like super ABBA, and her voice reminds me a lot of the Cardigans, and just those kind of things, with some of the most lush, perfect, well scouted, pinpoint accurate synth pop. There's a bit to be desired in the middle. It's shimmery and it's perfectly layered, but I don't know, it kind of loses me about 6 songs in, and there's a lot of songs. I think it's like 14 or 15, and it's still good. I just think a lot of people were taken aback that this is their first record. There were some EPs before that, but a lot of people say the shift or jump in quality from that to this in only like a year or 2 years time is insane. So that's pretty crazy. But I hear it. It's lush is the word. Lush Cardigans. Lush ABBA. But, you know, it's a bit of the same after a while. Not to say Dying of the Season is one of the best ABBA songs ever created, and there was a new ABBA record this year. Secret Your Fire, Something for You is like, the good songs are so good. They really are. Hysterical Us, Domino in the beginning, which the beginning loops back over to the opening song, the end. So that's pretty smart and creative. But, you know, it. I hate dragging down a record that like sounds perfect, but at the same time could still have some work done. I don't know how to explain that because I'm not actually good at music making theory or whatever you want to call it. So, but I'm going to say 7.75 out of 10 just because I think they can get more creative and not be so obvious about their influences. And that's dumb coming from me just because I like influences on their sleeves, but it just feels like they know they want to do more, but this is just This is actually their warm up. I think they know that. They know how good they are, but they wanted to just do this first to feel it out before they just dive straight in. And I think their second record might be one of the best pop records in decades, like actually. And after a while, I think a lot of people are going to see this and just be like, no, that was still really good, but maybe we were a little too high on just the left field. Next is a real shocker because I guess I'll just say hated everything Halsey had ever done up until this point. Halsey's boring. She's always been like Adele light to me from what I can remember, but with bad musical production. But that ain't the case here, because you can't have bad musical production with Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. If you don't know who those two are, Trent Reznor has been destroying the electronic world on his own terms as Nine Inch Nails for 30 years now, since like 93 with the Downward Spiral. And if you don't know that dude's legacy, you need to check it out. But then in the late 2000s, he teamed up with Atticus Ross and they started doing film scores. The most notable was The Social Network. And that, like, I'm pretty sure won either Grammys or Oscars for its film score. So he's just decided that he can do whatever he wants. He's probably one of the best producers out there. And this proves it, because this record's amazing, especially the production wise. But Halsey basically transforms her career from going to like an Adele Katy Perry ripoff to sounding like her own version of the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. Very specifically Yeah Yeah Yeahs. Because I'm trying to find other singers of the past like 20 years she sounds like, because there's some in there. There's a lot of like raw punk songs on here. But the closest I can think of is like maybe Metric. I don't know. Her voice has finally become unique enough because, you know, Adele does the same thing over and over, and now I just want Adele to do an actual like punk rock record, which will never happen. The album is called If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power, and it is particularly about toxic masculinity and fuck the patriarchy and her like trauma and pains going through postpartum depression. She just gave birth and it hit her pretty fucking hard. It hit her so hard that lyrically she's improved, and that is a bad joke, I guess, but like really, her lyrics were awful before, but then she had a baby and really like sat down and analyzed her life, and some of these lyrics are really, really good. The first song is just kind of like this like spooky gothic, almost southern country thing, the tradition, and it's lyrically just like, man, men are awful, they don't understand what pregnancy does to you. But then she has like 4 straight shots of bangers. Easier Than Lying, Lilith, Girl with a Gun. You asked for this. It's pretty clear just from that alone. You don't even have to dive into the lyrics if you don't want to. But Trent Reznor does what he's always done. He does spooky, gothic, industrial rock with enough electronica in there. And it just changed everything about her for the immensely better. I would dare say, and I hope this is the right song, I think so in my notes, I'm Not a Woman, I'm a God kind of reminds me of Yeezus era Kanye a little bit. More production wise than anything. And no, lyrically too. I don't know. It's a complete face change. I hope this stays this way. Even if she can't get Trent to come back, I hope she understands where to go from here. She may not, though, because this might have just been like one-time thing for her to get out, like her therapy. But it's good. It's a solid 8 out of 10, and it's gonna be in my year-end list because it's such a surprise, and some of those songs just fucking hit. Then we have Royal Blood, Typhoons, and all I can really say about that is AWOL Nation meets White Stripes with a dash of the Muse, and it is an 8.25 out of 10 because it is kind of repetitive and samey, but it's so catchy. It's so good and fun. It's just dancey, glittery electronic rock. And I can't really say much more than that because you hear one song, you've heard them all, but it's addicting, like really good candy or popcorn or something like that. And it's okay to have a really straightforward, addicting album sometimes. Trouble Coming and Typhoons are just in your face, obvious, and just wonderful. Who Needs Friends and Million and One are secretly sinister and catchy, and I really am into that. But man, Boilermaker just smacks you in the damn face. It's so good. It's an 8.25 out of 10. Up next, we have like maybe the most divisive pop record out there this year, which is Solar Power by Lorde. And it's only divisive because, like, musically, it's kind of the opposite of what Lorde been doing this whole time. But I think lyrically, it's still kind of there. I don't know. I like it. It's just 90s pop, but like the ones that talk about how great the sun is, like Perfect Day by Hokyu and Soak Up the Sun by Sheryl Crow. A little later, I think Natasha Bedingfield did Unwritten in like '06, but just specifically those songs, it's just like 10 versions of that. And some of it's kind of weak, but I enjoyed the songs I did like, and it feels like it's a commentary on just like lazy party girl summer beach woohoo and taking herself too seriously on purpose. I feel like she's always done that. Feels weird that people are turning on her now just because the mood and tone of the production changed. Maybe that's how it feels to me. That feels like the only reason. I really like The Path. I like Solar Power. I love Mood Ring. Stoned at the Nail Salon and Ocean Feeling are pretty good too. I will only give this a pretty kind of lowish score for me just because I wanted more after I think it was like 4 or 5 years, and Melodrama is such a good record and has one of my favorite pop songs of the decade on there, Green Light. So yeah, this is a bit of a letdown right there, but I'm not mad or pissed that Lorde went in this direction. It makes sense to me, and I think it's just a pit stop like all of her records are. She changes kind of the mood and style every time. So 5.75 out of 10, still worth a listen, or at least the songs I listed. Next, we have one that I kind of found out of a metal magazine, White Moth, Black Butterfly, Cost of Dreaming. And this is actually a side project from the frontman of a metal band called Tesseract, which I've never been super big into, but what he does here is just like he takes his soaring high clean metal vocals that are just meant for like stadiums and after he's screaming his head off to change that effect, and there's not any screaming on here, but he does it to a lot of like deep dark mid 2000s Nine Inch Nails style tracks, or Depeche Mode I'm thinking of a lot on here. Vocally I'd say The Cure, but like more soaring and high, and a lot of like Gary Newman style production as well. There's a female vocalist that accompanies him on a couple songs, and it's just a good creative record. He's trying to make a synth dark pop record with like a metal production and a metal song structure, and I think that's really cool and experimental in a very simplistic way that a lot of people I think don't bother with because they think there's no money or audience in it. And so I hope anyone who sees this video gives at least this one a check, because the next one's a little even more out there for me, but that's the kind of pop I like, is pop that takes risks. Prayer for Rain, Heavy Heart, Portals, Darker Days, and Unholy are some of the best tracks on here, but the two that I think really shine are Soma and Sprite. And Sprite is because the first half is unassuming compared to the second half of that track, and it's the ending. And it's such a good journey, and I really like this record. I'm going to try to keep out a look for this project more than Tesseract for sure, and I hope he keeps with it. I give it a 6.7 out of 5 because despite all my praise, I think there's like 16 songs on here, and he is experimenting a lot, and some of the shorter, more interlude songs don't work, and it's just kind of up in the air sometimes. So it's like a mixed bag of amazing pop songs and then just experiments that I could live without. So as a full record, but every song I listed you should check out. Just listen to those songs at the least. Penultimate, we have Willow, I Feel Everything, which it's super short, and the girl's just figuring out how to have fun, and she's still super young, which is always crazy to think about. With my hair back and forth, it was like she was 14 or something. I think she's like 21 now, 22. She has a long career, and I hope she keeps going with this, because there's like 3 or 4 songs that I enjoy a lot of, and her stylings and her influences are super on her sleeve because Travis Barker is all over this record, which I always think it's funny. The like hundreds of people he's worked with in the last like 3 years, and Avril Lavigne's on a record, and that's what she's doing. She's just having fun right now. I think she's gonna figure it out. Saw an article about how she listens to metal and she was like wearing a Mastodon shirt. So like seriously, I hope she gets to that point where she's comfortable making a metal record. She deserves to, I think, for someone with all that capability and access to the stuff that can make her do it, all the production things. She is able to do whatever she wants. And she says she listens to metal. She should do a metal record. That'd be cool. She shouldn't let anybody put her down for wanting to. She has the backing. Just go for it. I really like Transparent Soul. That's when I heard it and I was like, whoa, this is different than the record she did before, which was really cool and purely experimental pop. And then she changed direction. Don't Save Me is pretty good. Lipstick and Grow, which is the one featuring Avril Lavigne, they're kind of perfect for what she was trying to achieve. And then Breakout, which has a little bit of rap on it. And again, I think, because I do like what she's doing, but I also recognize that they are just kind of face value attempts of her still figuring out exactly what she wants to do as a musical artist, because every record she does is so drastically different in kind of weird ways. So it's a 5.5 out of 10, but you know, listen to the songs that I mentioned at the least. All right, here's the big weird one. This is Necronomidol. I'm about to butcher the title name. It's, I'm pretty sure, Norwegian or maybe German. Vämjelseriter. And you can just look at that cover. Look at the way the font is. It's trying to fuse the concept and maybe the playing style of black metal with Japanese pop idols music. And if you've heard like K-pop, it's kind of like that, but there's a more specific way that idol music does its thing, and it's very similar to like closest to American stuff I can think of is like maybe Celine Dion, but a little more upbeat and faster because rock instruments have always been a part of it, and they kind of blend playing stuff like metal, but it's not very metal. It's sleeked out electric guitar, fast banging drums, but it's produced in a very smooth, poppy, electronic album way. And I just want to push this record so hard because I think anyone who wants to see what pop can be beyond the Britney Spears or the Ariana Grandes and Taylor Swift stuff, to just see like the weirdness of it without having to be like so unrecognizable, because this is pop music. It's just unlike anything that you're going to hear in an American radio, and I'm saying that specifically as an American to an American audience. If anyone worldwide hears this, I hope you still check it out too, for sure. You could kind of pick any song and it'll sound weird, but I really like Lament Configuration, Casilda, Phantasmagora Cosmos, Necropolis, Ex Oblivion, Sarnath, and Warabita. So they play around with Japanese words, probably again German or Norwegian, and of course English. But I think all of their lyrics are in Japanese. But it's so dark and sinister. It's like evil Daft Punk in a lot of ways, and maybe it's just electro pop, but it's done in such a way that I think casual or the slightly above average pop person, like if the darkest thing you've heard all year is like maybe CHRVCHES or new Halsey, still check this out. I think you'll be in a pleasant surprise. And I am all about going from something like Olivia Rodrigo all the way to Necronomidol. This is a 7.75 for me because it's got like 15 songs. It clocks over an hour. Close to the middle, it starts to overstay its welcome and then it gets really good again. It's that kind of thing. But for me, most albums that I'd rate below an 8.5 are just picking really good songs to put like on playlists and to listen to over and over again without the whole album experience, because the whole album is only worth experiencing maybe 2-3 times. Maybe. And that's really what it's about, is trying to find songs you really dig out of something, I think, because not every album front to back is going to be all killer, no filler. But a lot of pop this year has gotten pretty close. So that's all for this time. Like, share, subscribe if you feel like it. And if you don't, just thank you for listening and have a good night.